Stars defenseman John Klingberg.
That's a very high profile name. I think that's available. Him and Chikrin are definitely the best two available defensemen.
Oh yeah,
But
definitely. And like they both have very similar contracts. Chikrin's better, definitely a younger defenseman, right, with some term on him. But the difference between them, I think, are I mean, you see Klingberg, he's an offensive defenseman. I mean, and then Chikrin's more like a two-way. But they both have that cheap contract that can basically go to any team in the NHL if you look at it.
that's what makes them so valuable, man. That's what
Yeah.
makes it so interesting because good teams, like really good teams who normally wouldn't be able to afford a rental or a player like them via trade,
Yep.
without like dismantling a lot, they can like it's possible. So
Yeah.
you could see Klingberg or Chikrin. This is about Klingberg, but you could see either one of them going to a contender that's stacked and making them even more stacked and creating a bit of like a god defensive squad.
Well, like we were
Um,
discussing this earlier, Klingberg he's gonna be a rental player. He's not gonna be. Who knows? The team that gets him might sign him after, but it's more likely. I feel like he wants to go to a team that could win, and I feel like
and then
what
he'll probably test free agency and see what he gets.
exactly right. Make maybe 7-8 mil. Like he can definitely get that
Yeah.
money right in free agency, and I guess their trade value does go up once it's at this trade deadline time when teams are trying to get that extra player for that playoff push, right? And
Yeah.
like teams, he could really slot into any team, and he has that cheap contract. He's 30 years old, but that's still pretty young. Like if you think about it, he's still in his prime. It's not like he's in his late
Yeah.
30s or even early 30s.
He's
At
got
that
three
30
or
mark.
four more years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Um. Yeah. Yeah, and he's also right-handed,
that
which
is
is a big thing.
that's hard to find in the NHL, right?
Yeah, it's not often like a guy who's like not too far removed from like a 68 point season,
Yep.
right-handed defenseman on a good contract becomes available. So I think a lot of teams are going to jump on this guy, and it's a lot of the elite teams too. Like we're talking like the Florida Panthers, Toronto Maple Leafs, Carolina Hurricanes, like that quality of team are the ones that are interested. He's not going to go to like some middling team that has a lot of cap space, right? Who's trying to make a push. No, he's going to go to like a favorite,
Yeah, I mean,
which which is good.
like see, everyone's like dissing Dallas for not showing him the respect of like getting him a contract extension, but I can kind of see it from Dallas's point of view where they have Heiskanen, right? That's how you say his name.
Yep.
Yeah, they have him, and that's the guy that they chose to be their top guy that they're gonna pay, and you can kind of compare the two, right? They're kind of very similar.
He also
But
doesn't fit into their age bracket.
no,
The Sagan and Ben window is closed.
exactly.
Those guys are done, and now it's about Hintz, Robertson, Heiskanen.
Exactly.
Right?
That's the thing. Like I was thinking, where like they're a team that's maybe wants to get a little younger. They don't want to stay old anymore because they're not winning, right?
No,
Um, but yeah,
Dallas has a lot of assets, man. Like they could like if you think about it, they could also like move on from like guys like Pavelski. I don't know if they could ever trade Ben or Sagan. I think they're on pretty big contracts, but
yeah,
like guys like Pavelski could be, somebody they move off from. But yeah, Dallas needs to retool. They made the Cup final a couple of years ago, kind of weirdly.
that was their window, though. I
Um,
feel that was their window to win with that team, and they didn't. So
it was weird because I thought their window had closed,
I did too,
and then
but they did
and then
well.
it just suddenly reopened. I don't know, but Sagan and Ben, I don't know. Those guys, I feel like those guys are just done. And I know it's supposed to be about the deadline, but like, how odd is Sagan's career? Like, never really achieved anything for a guy that had so much hype.
Do you even hear about Sagan in the headlines or anything at all about him? Like I forget about Tyler Sagan,
Well,
right?
I remember when he was traded from Boston and he made some remarks that were kind of, weird.
Yeah.
And like I don't know, maybe like people thought maybe he had like an attitude issue, like in like obviously he's a cocky guy, but
Yeah.
at the time he was a really good player. But like I don't know, he's done.
He's just
And
okay to
Jamie
me.
Benn, I don't know.
Yeah. They both dealt with some
Jamie Benn has
injuries,
phoned it
right?
in a long time ago. Yeah, a lot of injuries for both of them.
Yeah, for both of them. And that's been the I mean, I think that's a lot of struggles for the Dallas Stars, right? A lot of their older guys are getting injured, like Ben Bishop, he's forced to retire. So they
Yeah.
lost their top goaltender there, right? Like that was their guy that they signed to a big contract. So maybe they're making that move into a younger team, which kind of makes sense. So
I mean, Ottinger fits right into that timeline too.
yeah,
Ottinger's going to
right.
be really good. He's
Exactly.
already good.
Exactly. There's their younger goaltender, right? They already have it. So saying that though, like what's a mock trade that you can think of that Klingberg would go to, and how like
Well,
they would
we've talked.
execute that?
I would love to see Klingberg go to like a Florida. I think you have like Uyghur, Ekblad, Forsling, Klingberg. I think that really makes them strong.
Yep.
And somebody I could see Florida sending back. It depends how like obviously it depends on like other teams like bidding as well.
Mm-hmm.
But like I think a trade that could make sense for Florida is maybe like Owen Tippett.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe like a second or a third in Owen Tippett, or maybe even a first. It just depends how much they have to bid. But Owen Tippett hasn't shown me a lot like he's going to be able to crack into that Florida top six. I watched a fair few amount of Florida's games. Like he's good, but like Florida's top six is unbelievable, right? You're talking Reinhardt, Barkov, Huberdeau, Bennett, Duclair, Verhaeghe, and none of those guys are old. Like they're all like in their prime. Huberdeau's the oldest at 28.
Well, that's the thing. Do they even need Tippett? Do they need him?
No.
I mean,
No, I think
he's been a
Klingberg
prospect
makes
for
them
a
better.
while, right? Like he's been that like guy that hasn't cracked the roster. He's taken a while to come to the NHL, but sometimes that happens for some guys. But I just don't think he's a key player on that Florida Panther team, and they're a win now team. And would they rather right now have John Klingberg or Tippett? And I think I'd rather have Klingberg. And it makes more sense to me. And that value is there for Tippett still. Like he still has value. And if you send maybe a few picks with him, maybe a first, maybe a second, or maybe both for John Klingberg, that kind of would make sense. And it opened Tippett.
And Tippett fits right in with Dallas, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, he could get some minutes. He definitely could get some minutes there. Maybe make a name for himself.
Yeah. It's and honestly, like a Tippett for a rental might sound like a lot, but I think Florida has the potential to re-sign him.
Yeah, I could see that too. Yeah, like making like a deal with him just because Florida's a team to win the cup, right? And maybe Klingberg will see that, and he maybe will take a little bit of a discount. I mean, it's very he'd be really he'd really have to be happy there to do that, and they had to be clear with him that they're going to be a winning team. And like obviously, I feel like Florida's they're not this year is not their only window to win the Stanley Cup. I feel like they can still win the Stanley Cup even next year, right? So I mean,
I think as long as they play their cards right, I think Florida could be a contender for the next 5 years.
yeah, definitely, right?
The problem they do have some issues with cap because Barkov's going from 5.9 million to 10 million next year.
Yeah.
And Verhaeghe's going from 1 to 4 million.
Yep.
And they have this really, really bad dead cap thing with Keith Yandel. Next season, they have to pay Keith Yandel $5.3 million in buyout fees.
That is rough.
This year, they're only paying him 2. They also have Scott Darling, who they're paying 1.1, and Luongo, who ends this year.
Luongo.
Vancouver's still paying for Luongo, man.
That is too funny. Their captain.
The stupidest recapture penalty. But I don't know if Florida can make it work. And also like Klingberg could take less in Florida because Florida has a really attractive like tax situation. That's why players go to Florida.
I've heard
They don't
that.
get taxed as
I've
much.
heard that.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. I like the idea of Klingberg on Florida. I think that makes them like so much more deadly.
Yeah.
Like so much scarier on the back end there. But it's just about how much they're willing to pay for a potential rental. Like I said, they could re-sign him. It's a team I think he'd want to stay on.
Yeah.
But
I would be
money.
considering to stay on that team. They're a winning team, and they will be, like you said, for the next 5 years at least.
Yeah. What do you think about Klingberg? Where do you see him going?
See, I was gonna say Toronto, but I don't want to be biased. Just because.
No. I'm not gonna call you out for being biased because I do like the idea.
I just think Dubas will try to go for it. I think it's not even like oh, Klingberg's so good. Like I want him on Toronto. Like you want a good defenseman on Toronto, but no, like he would actually be a great addition there. He's a right-handed defenseman. He's offensive. That's kind of what they need. Really, their only offensive defenseman is Morgan Riley, right now, and TJ Brody's doing pretty good this year as well. Like I can see them maybe like trying to put Justin Hull in a trade, but but
They would have to for cap.
Well, for cap, right? Just to send a guy back with cap, but to make it intriguing, I think you can put Nick Robertson in there, and like we were talking about before, reunite him with his brother Jason, right? And then you can have that storyline there, and usually that works out when you have a brother tandem on the team. I think that'd be pretty cool to see, and I think
that makes it so attractive for Dallas.
Yeah, right?
I think getting Nick Robertson into Dallas is so attractive for them.
It's kind of a fan thing too, right? Like I feel like that attracts people. Like having a brother team that, and they're both great players, and like that'd give Nick Robertson an attempt to make an NHL roster like permanently, right?
So, well, that's the thing, right? Like the Leafs have guys like Nick Robertson who just can't break in because the Leafs he doesn't play a bottom six role.
No,
and the Leafs top six it's hard to break into that.
It is. If that didn't work, like just the two of them and maybe a pick, I could also see them throwing in Lindgren as well. I mean, that's a high prospect. I mean, not a high prospect defenseman, but like he's still a good prospect defenseman in their system.
I have a hard time seeing them sending two prospects.
I know. That is where maybe I don't see this trade happening, just because I think they're like going to be asking
Robertson
a lot for Klingberg.
Robertson in a first, I think, would be where the Leafs would need to be for Klingberg.
Yeah.
But the Leafs would also be needing, like, they'd have to send back cap.
Yeah. I mean,
like, they can't even make call-ups.
Klingberg's only carrying $4.25 million, right? And then you think about it.
Yeah.
Justin Hall, how much is he making? I don't even really know how much Justin Hall's making. Can't be making more.
The problem is the Leafs
mil.
have $100,000 in cap space right now.
Okay, that's pretty bad. It's brutal.
Right. So you would need to be sending back like Hall, and then, I mean, like you don't want to move on from Kerfoot. He's having a good year,
but that's a guy that has value right now, right? I mean, maybe that is the guy you gave up. But like, why would they really want to disrupt that core? I feel like they're doing well. Like if that's just tampering. That's taking a little bit of a chance. I don't know if you trade Kerfoot, right?
You would need to you know what? Maybe Dallas retains.
Yeah.
You send Hull, you send a first, and you send Robertson, right?
Yeah.
I could see Dallas retaining 50% to make that work.
I could see that too.
There might be some other minor things, like minor moves you have to make, right? Because that might still not be enough money.
Well, yeah, but you never know. What if like Toronto
it
decides
doesn't hurt
to make,
Dallas to retain?
Yeah, right. Like what if Toronto decides to dump some cap so they can make the move? I mean, they definitely have their ways of doing things and the deals that they make. But if he doesn't go to Toronto, I could honestly see him going to Boston. And this is why I just feel like he slots in really well to Boston. And Boston has some guys that have not been performing that they could trade to Dallas to, make their core a little better, a little younger. There's a guy, Jake DeBrusk. Like, yes, he's not doing well this year. He's not doing well, but he has done well in the past, and he's still pretty young. Like, he's a young guy. He can turn around his
25.
game. Yeah, exactly. He's still many years left in his prime that he can turn it around. And if he goes to Dallas, like, he's definitely going to get some minutes, and that's what he needs. Like, Boston's just not giving him the minutes because he's not performing, but like they also have guys that are ahead of him that he just can't get there, right? So Nebraska, I can see going back over that way for Klingberg, right?
Yeah. No, I agree. Actually, that makes sense. And Nebraska's a guy who's in trade talks too.
He is.
So yeah, I could see that working, man. You put DeBrusk in there with like a Hintz and a Robertson. I mean, that could be kind of nasty. So like DeBrusk in like a first or a second. It just depends on what you're competing with offer wise.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's fair.
I think it's fair.
That's fair.
I mean,
it helps Boston make a push for the playoffs because they're still kind of on the bubble here. But
I think they're on their way. I mean, the addition with Tuukka Rask now, which that is pretty big news. Tuukka Rask is back on the Boston Bruins.
Right.
I think they might have a chance now because I mean, Swayman was good. Swayman was good for them, but like at the same time, he was a pretty young goaltender, right? Didn't have a lot of experience, but now they have Tuukka Rask, and Tuukka Rask is only making 1 million, so they have a little bit. Like I wonder how much cap. I don't know how much cap Boston has, but their players are usually signed for cheap. So like I can imagine they have a little bit.
Boston has 1.6 million.
Okay, they can make it work if they trade.
If they trade
away,
DeBrusque, who's 3.6.
yeah, that could work. And if you trade other guys too, there's definitely could be another cap guy that could be traded on that team.
Yeah,
I don't know who, but
and Dallas can always retain. Like it's only one.
Yeah.
It's only 1 year, right? So
Yeah.
Dallas can always retain. 500,000.
yeah,
Right?
to get the guy that they want. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if it's a good enough offer for them, right? It's like DeBrusque in a first. Like I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, yeah. That I can. It's definitely a possibility, right? And it's just it might. I don't know. It might get Boston out of their funk. You know what I mean? Just that one guy that they need to put up the points on the blue line. Right, and he apparently is a great skater too. He can walk that blue line. He can score goals, get assists, do everything you need. And I think any team wouldn't go wrong going for